Alright, so we're going to start out and make a template for the scale and the blade. That way you can mass produce these. You'll be able to say, oh yeah, I can make another cake knife. What you're going to do is trace the template, which is 1/4 inch Lawan, onto your 1/4 inch stock, which I just used curly maple. And you're going to cut that out with your scroll saw. Now, important fact, you want to make sure you give yourself a little leeway, about 1/8 inch past the line. So make sure it's fat. Don't cut it on the line, cut it on the outside of the line. I'll trace out your knife on 1/4 inch walnut. So curly maple and walnut is what this knife is made out of. And go ahead and cut that out. Same thing, make sure you give yourself that 1/8 inch buffer. That'll come into play when we go to final fit and sand. And you want to go ahead and trace where this shape is going to be on the handles. Now this part here you're not going to be able to revisit. So you want to make sure that the front of the handle where it meets the blade, you got to make sure that's like perfect, because you're not going to be able to sand that during the final sanding. The rest of it doesn't matter. You could shape it however you want, but double side tape the two together. Make sure the top one that you traced actually is visible where your line's at. And funny story. So I made a knife for my dad, an actual metal one. I got a kit from Rockler, and I could not figure out why it looked so screwed up. I didn't trace the top line, so the two things were backwards, and it looked hideous. I had to start over from scratch. So my mistake, you learned. Go ahead and chop off the double-sided tape and take it to your spindle sander. You want to clean up that little edge because you're not going to be able to revisit that again. So this part right here, that curve in the front that's on the wheel right now, that part you got to get right out of the gate. Double-side tape the scales to the blade, and we're going to do some shaping here. Now, the double-sided tape, it's pressure sensitive, so the more you squeeze, the harder it is to get off. A little trick, if you take a razor blade and you run it down in between the tape, it'll free up a lot easier. Now, you're going to shape this, and pay attention to this part here. You want to my table is not even on the table. I try to get it in the frame for the shot, but you want to make sure that's squared up, and just shape it. And then get your palm router, using a round over bit, round over the handle. They're just double-sided taped together. Nothing crazy. No blade intact, just the handles. Now, sand off all the excessive adhesive from the double-sided tape. Apply some DAP Rapid Fuse. That's the multi-purpose one. That's why it's teal. And make sure you really line up the scale good, because you only have one shot at it. Clamp it back up. What I did, I held it for maybe about 4 or 5 minutes. And went and got a drink, came back, and started sanding, which is going to take a lot of time. This is the longest process. The rest of it takes you probably about 10 minutes to cut the stuff out, but the sanding takes forever. All I did there to get the bevel on the blade was flip over Ryobi's cordless belt sander, and it worked great. Now, do practice on a piece of scrap wood, because it takes a little bit of finesse to get used to trying to edge that in there. But once you get that bevel on there, look at that, it looks gorgeous. You're ready to apply your top coat, which is just a mix of mineral oil and beeswax. And I got the recipe from Tamar of 3x3 Custom, but I found out today I didn't actually get the recipe from her. I just imagined it or something. I'm not really sure how that worked, but wipe off the excess wax and oil. And I got some spent Gator finishing sandpaper. I think it was 320, but it's spent. I've used it, so it's probably up at 600 or 700 grit. I just lightly go over it after I wipe the wax off. That way, if any grain raises or anything like that, you can just knock it back down with that sandpaper. Apply a few more coats. I think I did 7 or 8, and there you go. That's it. It's so easy to make, and they look awesome. So, hope this helps out, and thanks.